Hello, Jelena. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for arriving. Don't worry about the small delay. And do you have any presentation to share?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, I'm waiting for till it's launched and we see everything is working well.
Just first introducing myself and all the things that I have done so far as a woman in cybersecurity. In 2005, I was first hired for CGI in Toronto, Canada. And I also graduated I was lucky enough to have a job as well before graduating from my information technology degree. York University, and then in 2006 already I was lucky enough to be searched for and work for Nortel, where I learned actually a lot. It was the biggest telecommunications company before in the world. Unfortunately, it's shut down now. Then in 2008, I moved to George Weston, the leading provider of retail in Canada. And in 2009, somehow through all of this career and experience that I've had so far, I was led to finish also get my CISA certification. And then I decided also to ramp up my experience and my education, and I did my executive MBA in 2011 at the University of Toronto, Rotman School of Management. 2012, I was in Sobeys. In 2014, I actually made the biggest move probably in career in life. I moved back to Europe, and I grew up in Canada, and I moved the continents basically for love. And I got married here, and I got hired for a European Stability Mechanism, where I also during that time, I became a mother in 2017. And then in 2018, I decided again to wrap up a little bit my experience, and I did my C-risk. And in 2019, I was called to be a CISO for a European Investment Bank. And that's where I am right now. So some of the tips for women in ICT in general, and I think it can apply to men as well. Some of my personal tips that I think I keep within me when I work and I do my job is remain focused on what you do and your intrinsic values and beliefs and morals. Keep balance and clear line between home and work. Yes, it's easy to say, but perhaps not easy to do always, I know. But know your role and responsibilities. It is an important job that we have in cybersecurity, so we always have to remember what our role and responsibilities are. Know that you're accountable for what decisions you make. Think strategically and surround yourself with allies and experts. So I think this think strategically really goes well with surround yourself with allies and experts. And it really helps to have a very good network of people around you. Learn to rise after defeat, limit distractions and time wasters. Very important that you're able to keep the balance and a clear line between work and home. Be steadfast and be confident. This is something I cannot say enough for the ladies out there. Really, if you know what you know, be confident, put your foot down on things and action. Do what you need to do. So what is happening these days? I wanted to go a little bit about what's happening these days in our cybersecurity world around us. So first I would like to go a bit into the financial institutions and cyber attacks targeted towards them. Basically because the financial sector can be said to be one of the most targeted sectors due to its reliance on information and its role in the credit intermediation process. And among cyber attacks, data breaches and fraud are perhaps the most popular ones. And this is basically what definitely keeps us awake all the time. And sometimes doesn't give us this clear line between home and work. But here, based on this chart, I wanted to show that fraud accounts for 43% of events. Data breaches 34% and disruption 23%. Hence, we see how important our jobs are. And basically, we see how secure we are in our work. Then some of the current trends of what we are seeing. This slide, I wanted to just show with the COVID-19 threats, how it multiplied and diversified in the world. And I'm not saying just for us, I'm saying for everybody, perhaps in the world when I talk to my peers. We saw that the coronavirus dedicated websites have multiplied, diversified in threats. We saw a lot of fake Red Cross and WHO impersonators and attacks. The attackers, unfortunately, seem to have no limits. We see a lot of hospitals being hit globally as well on this. So new status quo, Definitely, these are extraordinary times, and there are many ways that the world has changed over the past few months. We all used to think that the only issues that we had are shortage of skills, impact of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, 5G, and quantum computing. Until we really face the new, call it invisible enemy for the whole world that we now call COVID-19. One can simply say now that the world has changed and it's for sure become our new status quo, as to say. And the remote risks associated with telework will not definitely end with the pandemic ending. And this will all drive us even more so to this called zero trust adaptation. It is hard to get there, but we are all leaning towards this issue. So maybe some of the 60 to 80 days challenges that we had, definitely we had this state of ambiguity. We were facing increased operational risks and indirect cyber risks with that. When you think just about the people who had to stay home, working at the same time, doing things around the house, schooling your children, obviously there were indirect cyber risks to this because your concentration also tend to lower, and you tend to maybe perhaps also click the links that are very important not to click as a phishing attacks. So some of the future landscaping and like what we see evolving over the next days is where we might be initially facing more on the operational risk side. So we look at the teleworking and user awareness, long-term focus on disaster recovery and business continuity, lessons learned, extremely important for all of us to take the lessons learned from everything from beginning of the COVID at the moment that we faced from February, March of this year. And to put it in practice, to put it actually into our BCP plans, to test it, maintenance over cyber hygiene, extremely important. And when I say about the user awareness, I cannot stress this enough. And I think in every conference that I've been talking, this is perhaps the most important factor that we deal with, user awareness, and tailor the user awareness to the new phishing attacks. There's never too much of educating users these days. So, where do we go? Like, where do we start? So when we talked about all of these basic information, security, hygiene, it's definitely there's prerequisite for preventing any type of cyber attacks, including the most sophisticated like APTs. So we see some of the things like certifications for third parties that we deal with, suppliers, data leakage tools, extremely important, even more so now that we are teleworking and it's we have less control over what people are doing. Phishing simulations, I actually put it bold because it's very important. Right to audit and other contractual clauses, not to forget with your third parties, and do the general security hygiene over it. IT risk evaluations for new vendors and suppliers. I cannot say how many we have come across in the last half a year, just trying to see if we can get better tools for conferencing, for virtual conferencing. So yeah, I'm not going to go through every one of these, but they're very important factors when we deal with cybersecurity. So some of the things that I wanted to also say to design security risk mitigation is some of the things I wanted to highlight is to be on the lookout, monitor industry news, be on the lookout for security threats to understand the risks that we are actually facing, and then develop countermeasures. So by reviewing our risk factors involved, we can develop some countermeasures. And this is where plenty of our on-the-fly risk assessment these days. This is what actually keeps us very busy these days, in fact. And then again, I will stress it, train the staff. Train the staff. We need to constantly remind ourselves that our staff is the first line of defense when it comes to identifying anything that could harm business assets. And then effective security technology, some of them that I would name without naming any technology specific for any organization, but endpoint detection and response. It will allow us to detect potential security breaches and react quickly, recording endpoint and network events. And the data is continuously searched using this, and knowing indicators of compromise can be, and machine learning techniques for early identification of breaches can be very well used with this tool. Then user entity behavioral analytics, testing security for DevOps, develop some governance around it, remote browsing, very interesting one to use for malicious malware delivered via emails that we see nowadays. And it will try to reduce basically the surface area for an attack, basically shifting the risk to deceptions. And then some of the deception tools, think about that as well, very important to have and to use in the organizations. So some of the strategies to defend against an APT, well, APT is definitely a complex attack consisting of many different components. We can talk about penetration tools, network propagation mechanisms, spyware. They're all designed with one objective in mind, to undetected access to sensitive information. And the scary part is that people usually think that APTs target any sensitive data. And in fact, you don't have to be a government agency to become a victim to these things. So please, everybody should pay more attention to this. And some of the things to do are perhaps application patch applications such as web browsers, PDF viewers, restrict administrative privileges to operating systems, patch operating system vulnerabilities. And new outlook, well, I already talked about lean towards the zero trust as much as possible in an ideal world. It is easy to say, but we will all try to do our best in this perspective. More user awareness trainings, dependency on your peers, extreme importance, and best practice, exchange information if you can with CertEU, which we are lucky enough to have that. DLP tools more critical than ever, reliance on staff behaviors, BCP testing on regular basis, given what we learn now from COVID. And then another thing is prepare for exit. Definitely exits do exist, and they exist for a reason. We could have better suppliers, we could have breaches of contracts, failure to meet certain obligations, failure to comply with regulatory matters, for example. So hence, we will sometimes exit some of our third parties that we deal with, some of our vendors. So what can we do? Please, when you do this, do practice the regular exit simulations, comprehensive exit strategies and plans, DR and BCP plans, regularly update them. And then just to wrap up, I just want to say that I've tried to go global. I've tried to go a little more details on the technical parts that I know we don't have a lot of time to go more. What it means, and I try to just describe what it means to have this security hygiene. However, we need to admit that on a global level, we need to improve. And I read somewhere that the officials from U.S. Secret Service and the FBI stated this year, and it was that the speed at which criminals are devising and executing their schemes is truly breathtaking. And it's definitely scary when you think about it. And I truly believe that although each state has its own agenda, competing priorities and interests, we actually need to work towards achieving harmonized and mutual benefits from each other. And we should put aside all our differences, paying more attention to confidence building measures, in fact, to improve ongoing mutual security and stability with the cyberspace. We cannot forget that as more devices are connected to Internet of Things, the more we will face these issues. And international coalitions definitely need to be created. I don't know how and when this will happen, but it's something that I keep saying all over again. And governments need to seriously think of the economic, political, and definitely human challenges that are inevitably coming our way as we speak, given the COVID as well. So thank you, everybody. I hope that my presentation was explained well. I'm putting the camera back on, that I didn't interrupt my presentation. And if I could just have a minute to announce something also that supports women in cyber security. This is unplanned, but in Luxembourg, we have just made Cyber for Women. It's also supported by Commission and EU, and we will have a new chapter here, and I'll be looking forward to working more with you as well, and your organization, as well as Sonia Kekic that she just presented. So you'll be hearing from me on this as well, and I hope that a lot of people can join and support also this organization.
I fully agree with you, and thank you for your presentation and also for your invitation. And I turn to the audience. If you have any question to Jelena, you can reach her via the People tab and can ask directly from her.